Hey, sports fans, Larry Eater, Run Blog Run, your favorite program, Athletics Chat, and it's number 50. Stuart, can you believe it? We've survived that long. Wow. And as you know, the good-looking guy with the headpiece on in the middle of the screen is Stuart Weir in the intellectual capital of the world, the vetting capital, the golf capital, and the pub capital. And this is Larry Eater. I'm in Medford, Oregon this week. I'll be heading to Eugene and then to Portland. But I've got my Johnson & Johnson one shot, and I wear my mask and, hoping to see a track meet. So, Stuart, good to see you.
Yeah, I'm a Pfizer man myself.
Okay. Pfizer is very good, too.
Yeah.
And you've had your 2 shots now, right?
I have, yes.
Did you get worn out after your second shot, or do you have any ill
reaction?
No
reaction at all. No reaction at all.
Well, I do feel like the Bill Gates chip is like stuck behind my ear, but it's great for radio reception. I'm getting Russian hockey games and Cuban baseball games. So, I think we got everything covered. So today we're going to start out with the World Relays, and I read your first piece, 5 pieces coming from Stuart Kids. Going to be some good stuff today. Stuart, thank you. You probably loaded up on a little bit of tea or caffeine. So kind of give us a little feel of what you thought about the World Relays.
Well, I love the World Relays. I've been to the last 2. That was in Bahamas and in Yokohama, just outside Tokyo. I think it's a big question whether it should have gone ahead this year, given that Poland has been in lockdown. You could say it's a bit devalued by the fact that the US, the strongest nation in the world, chose not to send a team. And Britain only sent teams for the 4. And I mean, if you look at some events like the 4x1, the medals at the last 2 World Championships went to US, Jamaica, and Britain, and none of those were in the sprint relay. So it's a little bit devalued in that sense. But then I suppose the good news is that we saw medals being won by Cuba, Botswana, almost by Uganda, who finished in the medals and then were DQ'd. So, I mean, it meant that other nations had a chance to succeed, and perhaps Ecuador, another one. So I suppose that was good. Athletes in the British team who were there seem to have enjoyed it. So, I mean, I think it went well. For me, there's always a big question: what is the purpose of the World Relays? Is it a fun event? In which case, I think it would go better in September rather than in May. But of course, now they're trying to use it as a qualifier, because probably about 20 to 30 qualification slots for not just Tokyo, but Oregon World Championships have been granted this week to people according to where they finished in the races in Poland. And in a way, you could also question that, because is that a little harsh on countries that couldn't actually get there because of COVID? But it's. I always find that I take the championship distances, the 4x1 and the 4x4, a lot more seriously than the shuttle hurdle relay.
Sure.
Although the 4x2 is fascinating because it seems that people struggle with the changeovers, because in a way athletes know how to change over at lightning speed in the 4x1. They know how to do a more leisurely changer in the 4x4, but the 4x2 people seem to struggle with. I mean, I remember in Yokohama, the Jamaicans in their women's 4x200 had a certain Shelley Ann Fraser Price and a certain Elaine Thompson, so you'd think that they would walk it, but actually they messed it up on the changeovers. So, yeah, I mean, I feel I've just rambled a little bit. Poland is a great country for hosting track meets, but then COVID came along, and then no spectators allowed, and then it was so cold yesterday that we actually saw people in relays putting a jacket on while waiting to run the second leg.
Wow. Yeah, that doesn't happen. I mean, I remember going to the Bahamas in 2014, and my thought at the time was the Bahamas should host the World Relays every year. My only complaint was that it was at the beginning of the season, and that I was going from there straight, I think, to Doha. And so I had some concerns about where it was being placed on the schedule. I love meets in Poland, went to the World Indoors in Sopot, and have just loved their enthusiasm. And I was in Torun in 19 for the European, or the World Indoor Tour. But I think that I still think the European Indoors in Torun, even with 40 people getting sick, which was disappointing, it was tremendous because they had over 750 people. But if you extrapolate that out, with the 10,000 athletes who will be coming to the Olympics, you could see, say at that number is totally unscientific, you could see some pretty significant numbers. The World Relays, I think the IAAF's dancing on a very thin line and very thin ice too, and that I applaud them for championing events, and I think that's where Lord Coe is standing. But he's got to be careful, because like right now, we're in Medford, Oregon, my girlfriend Kathy and I, and we're going to head to Eugene to hopefully see a track meet on Friday. But right now, the governor of Oregon has shut down 15 counties around Portland, and you can't go inside any restaurant. You are only able to see it outside, and it could get tougher. And now it's the young college kids who are getting sick, the ones they said who were, immortal. And so it's and part of the problem in Oregon is that they've had a challenge getting vaccines. And we've got the U.S. Olympic trials coming here, June 19th through the 28th. And I don't think we discussed this last week, but the U.S. Olympic Committee, the local organizing committee, Trackdown USA, decided to refund everybody their tickets from the trials, and they're going to come up with a new process the end of May. And we've heard from our sources that it could be between 15% of capacity and 50% of capacity. Well, 15% will mean the only people that will be allowed in are coaches and athletes and perhaps some media. We're already being told about media that it's all remote access for mix zones, which we're fine with. We actually kind of like that in some ways. And there'll be a few old timers like me and some people who have readerships who will be allowed in the stadiums. So it's not going to be the flavor of any other time before, as you know. And so we're going to have to see just how it's going to go. And right now there's plans May 23rd for Gateshead to host the first Diamond League, then Doha, then our friends in Florence, used to be Rome, and in between that is Hengelo. And I was trying to price tickets for that yesterday. And, I'm going to juggle around a little bit, but what I'm trying to figure out is, what if we get out there and they start canceling meets, And I'm very concerned about that. But no, I think the World Relays, like you have shared, wonderful concept, and there's great stories on the events. I have to say, I've been trying to come up with a way to describe the shuttle hurdles. And the shuttle hurdles is like watching NASCAR. And the reason why I say that is it's like waiting for a train wreck. It's so precise. It's one thing to do the 4x1 and watch a baton being handed off or not. And I showed my girlfriend that video of the Japanese team that flipped the baton up in the air in the 4x1 and caught it and somehow finished, but I think they got DQ'd. So we know those things can happen. And the shuttle hurdles, it's insane. And it was fun to watch, you know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw that for the first time in Yokohama, and there were 4 teams in the final. 1 false started, and 1 fell, and 2 finished.
Wow. I think the world realizes the concept. You and I both share that it's a good thing. We're kind of questioning whether it should have happened this year. And we also give the caveat that I like your idea of it being the last meet of the season so that people can have fun. Think about how fit, coming off a world championship where someone drops a baton, they've got a little bit of face-saving stuff to make up. And having that relays at the end of the season, that would be awesome. So
look,
good idea there.
Don't tell anyone this, because just between you and me.
Sure.
But a colleague of mine in Bahamas 4 years ago had a meeting with an athlete, and the place they found for the meeting was 2 sunbeds in the beach in front of the official hotel.
Wow.
So, of course, I was working the whole time.
Oh, I know. Your tan, it took a while to do. Hey, I just wanted to show for the crowd that I'm using a Dr. Phil mug. Dr. Phil is a TV character over here. He does psychological advice for some people who are rather strange. So Kathy and her sister got this for me because they said that, I talk a lot. So, I know you're shocked. So Stuart, talk to me about the anniversary games.
Well, the anniversary games, still nothing official, but I am being reliably informed that a deal is being struck between the London Legacy Board, which manages the London Stadium, as we now call it, the 2012 Olympic Stadium, 2017 World Championship venue. And because it's going to cost them something north of $3.5 million to convert the stadium for track and field from a soccer stadium, they are saying to UK Athletics, if you go somewhere else, we will give you, and again, this is just hearsay, but I mean, I've heard a figure, $1.5 million that they will give them if they go somewhere else, and that looks like a deal that may work, because it's better for the London Legacy Agency to spend $1.5 million than $3.5 million. And while it's not the same having it somewhere not in London, and they're not sure yet whether they'll be allowed spectators and how many, to be given a large sum of money to help you run your event is quite a useful thing to have.
Yeah, no,
So the likelihood is it'll be in Gateshead.
So 2 meets in Gateshead then?
Yeah, Gateshead or Manchester are really the only 2, and Gateshead has a bigger capacity. And also you could say, if Gateshead has done 1 Diamond League, then a certain amount of the infrastructure will be set up. And just since we're talking about Gateshead, interesting developments. I don't know whether you've seen on the Gateshead event on the 23rd of May. We've talked about the lack of staff at British Athletics in event management and in media. Well, the media stuff has been outsourced, and Jason Henderson of AW, formerly known as Athletics Weekly, is the media chief for the event.
Oh, good for Jason's a great guy.
He is. That's good.
Now, is he still staying with Athletics Weekly?
Oh yeah, this is just as a one-off. He's doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, didn't AW just lose our dear social media person there? And
Jess Whittington. Yes, she has gone to World Athletics.
Wow, Jess was great. She was always a smile, and she busted her chops. And it's nice to see her make a few bucks, and she'll do well with Bob Ramzak and that group in Monaco. So talk to me about the Gateshead meet. So we know Dina Asher-Smith's competing.
Yeah.
I heard something about Mo. Is Mo competing there too, or not?
I've heard that. Yes.
Okay.
I believe that the Dina Asher-Smith will be facing Elaine Thompson and the name is gone. The American who's been running so fast this season, Sha'Carri.
Oh, Sha'Carri Richardson.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So,
and is Spencer Barden's putting that elite field together?
I would assume so, but I have not heard either way.
Okay. You had mentioned, so Gateshead, I've seen pictures of the Gateshead Stadium from the 70s. That's where Brendan Foster competed and Moorcroft and stuff. Tell us a little bit about that stadium. How big, what's the capacity?
I would have thought the capacity is about 15,000. It's past its heyday in terms of the days you're thinking about. I was last there for the European Team Championship, and I wonder if that was about 2015.
Okay.
It's from the point that British Athletics moved their HQ into the Alexander Stadium, that became an obvious place for them to run their meets. So therefore, Birmingham had a Diamond League. It always hosted the UK Championship. And of course, it's also the home of the Birchfield Club. But Gateshead, it's a running area. The North Run goes through it. So the Northeast, you mentioned Brendan Foster, also Steve Cram. So it's strong, and it's the event will be well done. What we don't know at this point is how many spectators will be allowed. Last week we had a soccer game which had 4,000 spectators, and that was an experiment. And from the 17th of May, there can be spectators, but I'm not quite sure that we know yet how many, and that may vary from event to event. It may be a percentage of the capacity, but I would have thought that they will be hoping for 5,000 to 10,000.
Okay.
Whereas in London, they might have been hoping for 10 to 25,000, depending on what would be allowed. So certainly a loss of spectators.
Why didn't they look at Crystal Palace? I
don't think it is in a state. I could be wrong, but I don't think it is in a state to have crowds and spectators. I have not been to Crystal Palace since, I suppose, since 2011.
Wow. Okay.
When suddenly it's the old Olympic and now the London Stadium that's become the premier venue.
Wow.
Some people did actually say, why don't you take the £1 million you've been given and renovate Crystal Palace, and then you'll have something ongoing.
Yeah. That's the most unfortunate because it has such a great history, and I loved events there. So talk to me about this new board member at the UKA.
Yeah, just a press release came round that Jennifer Thomas has been appointed as the non-executive director. She has a good track record in business, working with Lloyd's of London, GlaxoSmithKline. Communications is her background. I couldn't actually find her, but she has competed for England, which sounds as if it's, but not for Britain. And she has been in the US collegiate system, but no details given. Two things which are interesting about her. She's about 45. I did not see an age, but looking at when she went to college, you could sort of estimate. And I mean, in a way, this is a kind of comment that you shouldn't normally make, but it is perhaps significant. She's black. And I only mention that because Anne Waffula Strike, who is the only black person on the board of any major sport in the UK, has been a great voice for this. You know, why does the diversity mean women? Why does diversity not mean black? Why in a sport like track and field, when half or more of your athletes are black, do you not have any representation at senior level in the organization or on the board? So that's the only reason I'm mentioning. I don't mean that because she's black, she's either better or worse than someone who isn't, but it's just helping it's helping the representation. One interesting thing which raised some of my alarm is that she is on the board of English netball, but in fact she joined that board after Joe Coates left. So it's not someone coming. It's not another friend, shall we say?
How has the media responded to Joe Coates' changes with British athletics? How would you characterize our friends like Sean Ingalls, our friends at the London, the Daily Mail, some of the other organizations?
Well, first of all, when I started traveling to meets, which was in the last 10 years, remember the first time I went to Rome, there were 5 English writers at the Diamond League in Rome. Since then, I'm the only one who goes.
Yeah.
So first of all, there are now very few full-time track and field writers on any newspaper. And certainly people have said to me that they've had a great story and the paper just says it's not big enough. See, on a Monday, the newspaper that I get will have perhaps 24 pages of sport and 16 of those are soccer.
Wow.
To start. And so, first of all, there's not a lot of coverage of track and field. I mean, like, I didn't see any mention of the World Relays. And there has not been a lot. I mean, there's been coverage of the anniversary games being moved and stuff like that. But one or two people that I've spoken to have said, well, look, Joe, we were critical of the old regime. Joe Coates has come in. She's only been there for a year. We ought to give her a bit of time to see what it's like when she's put her stamp on it. And so certain things have been reported, like the appointment of 2 coaches with very little experience, stuff like that. But I would have said there's been quite a silence, partly, as I say, partly because newspaper editors really don't think that track and field is that important to their readers? And secondly, that there is a sense of, well, let's not attack her until she's had time to put her stamp on things, and then we can evaluate. So those are my thoughts at the moment.
Sure. We have some curious things going on in the U.S. that I wanted to share with you. At this time, I count just about 40 elite bespoke track meets coming up over the next 2 to 3 months. Everything from the USATF Road to Tokyo series, they have 10 meets, Jesse Williams Sound Running series, the Miles of Trials events, as well as the new series that Paul Doyle just announced with the American Track League. And I haven't had time to delve into the American Track League and see where the duplication is, but I applaud these meets. And our friend Dave Monty with Race Results Weekly, one of the top weekly news services in the sport, tweeted this weekend, he was just pleasantly surprised how many events are going on. And at the same time, probably one of the top 3 high school state meets, which are 14, 18-year-olds in the United States, which is the state of California, the CIF meet, has been canceled for the second year in a row. It's most disappointing. It's been very sad for the athletes. There's about little less than 86,000 athletes in California who compete in high school track and field. And most of them got to compete at one level or another, but the very, very top performances, they didn't get to go to the state meet this year. We're hoping there'll be some junior championships, but some of them are being canceled. New Balance is doing an outdoor championship that they used to do with a group called NSAF, and now NSAF is competing as well. So there's 2 junior champs. You're kind of going, what's going on? But my big beef is this. I applaud USA Track and Field for doing the Road to Tokyo series. But USATF, Team USA, is the most winning track team in the world. And in fact, in the U.S., in U.S. Olympic history, the U.S. track team is the most winning team, even more than USA basketball. And I think they need to lead and not to follow. And sometimes what I'm seeing right now is I don't understand why they didn't just call up the folks with the other 30 meets and say, hey, we love all these meets. Why don't we do this? Why don't we have 10 or 12 big meets, and then we'll support some of the other ones and make it work. They got $43 million a year from Nike, and Nike wants the sport to grow. For Nike to sell more shoes, for the other 47 brands to sell more shoes, they need more people to participate. So a perfect investment for USA Track and Field would have been, let's support some more meets. So I'm kind of frustrated by that, and I'm starting to get this sad theory, Stuart, that federations somehow, I think when you get into a federation, maybe you drink some silly water and there's just bits of dysfunctionalism, you know? I mean, we were lucky to get Max to speak with us, Max Siegel, the CEO at USA Track and Field a few months ago, and I thought he was rather straightforward. But we're in now the second year of a pandemic, and we are now less than 7 weeks away from the Olympic trials. And the truth is, USATF doesn't know what's going to happen. USOC doesn't know what's going to happen. And I don't think the IOC knows what's going to happen in Tokyo. So I still think we're up in the air. And it could be that if the Olympics don't happen, I dare say what's going to happen with the Olympic trials. I do think some of these other meets will happen if the local health authorities allow them. One of the things that's been really good about the small meets here, like especially the stuff like Jesse Williams is doing, he's got one coming up on the 14th, and the folks of the Miles of Trials did it in Kansas City. There's a young writer named Chris Chavez, a 6-year veteran of Sports Illustrated. He does Citius Mag. He and a group of his associates have put together a series of meets, and they're learning that the sport's an investment. When I did my first magazine, I was $1 million in the hole after 3 years. It took me 8 years to pay it off. To invest in the sport and to build something takes money, takes support, takes a lot of patience, and takes a strong stomach. I think that all these things are there with the groups of people who are doing them. I'm totally impressed with what Jesse Williams and what Paul Doyle has done. I think the person who really needs to get a pat on the back right now is the best TV ratings on any TV program this entire year has been with Mark Wetmore's New Balance Indoor Grand Prix. It was 3 times what the USATF's Grand Prix in Hayward Field was. And why is that? Because Global Athletics has the same time period. They do the event every year. They bring in quality athletes. They have a great team, and they have a sponsor who believes in the meet. And those are all key. They had 969,000 TV viewers, and the closest other show was USA Track and Field's event at Hayward Field with 319,000. Now, the thing about it is, too, is our friends at New Balance Indoor were also dealing with the American football season ending, but they put together some good stuff. And I think that quality wins over quantity. That's one, as you and I both know. But two, we've got to get the different groups together to think these things through. It's a little frustrating sometimes because as a media person with limited resources, I mean, from 2017 on, Stuart, you and I were two of the only people who were hitting most of the Diamond League. I think I hit 10 of the meets, or 12 maybe, right? And all the stuff in Europe, I'd see you there. In the UK, you and I were at everyone, and we would see our fellow our friends in the British media at those, but we would go anywhere else, Stockholm, Oslo, Paris, Stade Charlotte. We didn't see anybody. I mean, it was on, and it was, I think we're on more limited budgets than anybody. But we figured out how to do it. We do it because of the love of the sport, and we also want the story to be told. And I wanted to share something with you. Sorry for blabbing. I talked to William Lear last week. So Will Lear is that American runner. He's run a 3:51 8-mile, and he won a medal at the 2014 World Relays. His wife is Asia Pratt Lear, and Commonwealth champion at the steeple. But Will's kind of in the process of assessing where his career is going. But I was asking him if he was talking to a bunch of media types like you and me in a room, what would he tell us? And he said, the quote was, "Stop worrying about the times." Saying that Steve Cram, ran a 3:50 mile, big deal, and who was second. Telling the story around it. So I did an experiment. He told me about Morgan Mcdonald, the Australian runner who went to the University of Wisconsin, 4-time NCAA champion. Morgan won the 5,000 meters last week at Drake Relays. But what people don't know is he had hurt himself, and it could have been almost a Stephanie Twell at Austin. Messed up his ankle really bad in February. This was his first race coming back, and he runs a 13:21, a new meet record, but he ran with such confidence. And so I found a really fun picture of Morgan, just did a nice little piece on it, and we got 8,000 retweets in 24 hours. So it tells you, like we've talked before, people want the story. I mean, that's what I love about, I love your intros to meets, because you always throw something in there that I don't know about, and part of the thing is, we're supposed to try to learn something new every day. And that's what we try to do with our readers. But so we're down to about 6 minutes. Anything coming up this week in the UK that you think we need to be aware of?
I had one thing I wanted to mention. I don't know whether you saw the quote from Tegla LaRue.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
The old marathon runner, and also who managed the refugee team in Rio and other places. Basically, she said the new shoes are a form of doping.
Yeah.
And made the point that a lot of people in the third world will not be able to afford them. And so you're going to have two classes of runners, those who can afford to pay, I don't know, $250 for shoes, and those who can't.
Yeah. No, I
thought it was an interesting point.
Yeah, I think she's got a great point there. I mean, you and I have been trying to come to grips with the whole shoe thing. We know the shoes have a big effect. And I ran this by Will Lear last week, and I said the shoes, the only way I can say is that the shoes are like Ron Clark going from a grass track to a tartan track every time. And he thought it made a ton of sense. The thing about it is we've dealt with these things. This is the most extreme. And that's where he brought up the idea that our sport's not about times, it's about the great stories and the head-to-head competition.
Yeah.
And we're getting ourselves in trouble because we spend all this time talking about great times and how that's affecting the sport in a positive way. And I think right now, I love geek times and I love great long jumps and things like that. Yeah. But I love to see it like when like Joe Kovacs threw a big shot put last weekend. And what does that tell you? It tells you that if we have a U.S. Championships, him and Ryan Krause are going at it in the shot put is going to be really exciting. So I think that we've got to. I think World Athletics has always got to be looking. They've got to bring a couple real shoe people in. It's the whole thing too. I still feel the same way about Caster Semenya. I think Caster should have been. I hate to use the term grandfathered, so we'll say grandmothered in. But because it's not her fault that we've come up with knowledge we didn't have in 2007 or 2009. And I think
also, I would say that the knowledge is not being applied fairly, because if it matters that whether women have a certain amount of testosterone, it obviously doesn't matter for men. That a man with a lot more testosterone than another one doesn't have an advantage, whereas if it's women who do. What's that one out?
Yeah, no, I think those are some of the things we've got to be a little more cognizant of. And I'm going to reach out to our friends at the Science of Sport and get them to help us explain stuff in modern English so that we can understand. But you've survived Athletics Chat 50, my friend. I hope that the rain stops in lovely England, and I will keep you informed. I'm going to try to see if we can get over for the Gateshead meeting, and I haven't seen you since I believe 2019. Yeah, and so well, I see you every week with your charming headgear on and stuff like that, but it's not like you telling me puns when we're right there. So.
I'm hoping to go to Gateshead, but these days I don't think you can say I'm definitely going to anything, because I don't know how many they're going to accredit. I don't know what the arrangements are going to be. So we shall see.
All right, my friend. You have a great week. This is Larry Eder with Athletics Chat 50. Our friend Stuart Weir in the intellectual capital of the world, Oxford, England. I'm in Medford, Oregon. I think this is kind of a nice cheese and dairy and other, things in Oregon. But have a great week. If you like RunBlogRun, like us at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you love us, subscribe on our YouTube channel so you can see all 50 Athletic Chats episodes. That would be scary, Stuart. If someone watched all 50, we may have to get a shirt or something for people,
Yeah.
Or a coffee mug. All right, my friend. You have a good one.
Thank you.
And thanks to Mike Deering for managing all our programming. And we love you, Mikey. Okay, thanks. Hey, sports fans, Larry Eater, RunBlogRun. This is Athletics Chat 50, the Epilogue, or Larry's monologue, as some people near and dear to me say. Stuart Weir, he's in Oxford, England, the intellectual capital of the world. Larry Eater, that's me. I'm in Medford, Oregon this week, and enjoying the combination of the Midwest and the West Coast in a small town. And we were at Four Daughters, a saloon where you can sit outdoors, and we had these amazing fried mushrooms with German mustard and ranch dressing and a Guinness, and I just wanted to add that in. Anyway, so here's what we talked about this week. First of all, the World Relays, which just happened in Silesia in Poland this last weekend. Fantastic event, always a wonderful event, but some of the big players were missing on the world stage. Team USA didn't even send a team. Great Britain just said 4x4s. And we, Jamaica, I believe, was missing, and so were a few other teams too. So as Stuart said, the big question is, why do they have it? They had it because we need to have sporting events. And it looks like they've done a pretty darn good job. Poland's done several major events during the pandemic. They did the European Indoor in tow room with about 770 athletes from 29 countries, excuse me. And they had about 40 people who got sick on the way home. Sorry, people just like to call out of the blue. How dare them? The World Relays went off very well. There were some great performances. The Italian teams, the Polish teams, and Germany did well in the shuttle relays. And Italy just had a couple stunning performances. So hats off. My feeling about the World Relays, they should be in the Bahamas every 2 years, but they should be at the end of the season after everything, so people relaxed, a lot of money's given away, and people enjoy it. It's very practical to have it as a place for people to qualify, but maybe it's for people to qualify for the next year. Having it so early in the season just busies up our calendar, and that's one of my concerns. I know World Athletics is well-meaning, and I celebrate their creativity, but just consider that in the spirit that it was given. Anniversary games. So the anniversary games is supposed to be in the QE2 Olympic Stadium, one of my favorite places to watch track and field. 2012 and 2017 were tremendous. 81,000 people in the stadium, and it was pretty amazing. But the folks who run the stadium, the Legacy Group, have decided it's going to cost $3.5 million US to fix it up for a month for track and field. And so they've said, hey, British Athletics, here's $1.5 million bucks. Go find another place to do it. So the way it looks right now is that there'll be two meets in Gateshead, the Gateshead Diamond League meeting and the Anniversary Games Diamond League. So it's at least we'll know where we're going to be, and people will be driving up to Northern England to enjoy the meet. 15,000 people in the Gateshead Stadium as opposed to 80,000, or in the pandemic, probably, what do you say, 40,000? So we'll have to see what's going to happen there. It's just a little strange. The new board member in UKA is a woman named Jennifer Thomas. And she is the only woman of color apparently on the board. And our friend Stuart questions that with the majority of athletes being black on the British team, why there isn't a little more diverse representation. Again, just the thought, not accusations, but it's something to think about. In the U.S., we talked about the plethora of major meetings. Our friend David Monty at Race Results Weekly noted that everywhere he looked last weekend, there was a track meet. A couple sad things. CIF, California, the high school track meet that's been around since the 1930s, I believe, perhaps even the 1920s, is canceled for the second year in a row. I believe there's other ways they could have approached it, but with so many meets being canceled, and I think the liabilities, the state is still very worried about what is happening at the high school level for their 80,000 athletes competing, running, jumping, and throwing the Golden State in California in track and field. Many states across the U.S. did have state meets and had abbreviated seasons. And I think the state of California could have done something similar. Again, not hollering at them, because nothing gets done when we holler. It's time for discussions. It's time to have a real discussion about things and get the people who are involved, from coaches, athletes, fans, media, to try to put something together and come up with a common plan. Right now, I identify 40 bespoke elite track meets in the U.S. over the next several months, and USA Track and Field is sponsoring at least 10 of them. I do not know the level of their involvement in the American Track League Series by Paul Doyle. I do know they're not involved with Jesse Williams' Sound Running Series, and Jesse has been putting on bespoke meets now for about a year and a half, and his meets are I think, one of the real standards. The folks at Miles of Trials have done a lovely job too, with the support media-wise of Chris Chavez, the Sports Illustrated writer and the editor-publisher of Sidious Mag. We had Chris on Socialing the Distance last month, and he shared the challenges of going out and asking people for money. It's a tough deal. That's when I did magazines, and as I do now, I'm asking people every day to support the media that we do, so we can keep independent media out there. So I understand what Chris is going through, and I wish him the best of luck. I think these meets are important, but I also think USA Track and Field, with that $43 million that Nike's giving him, could have sat down and said, "Hey guys, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. This is a good idea, Paul. This is a good idea, Jesse. Let's come up with 25 great meets. Let's figure out how these things work and don't compromise other meets. Let's highlight others. Here's some money. Here's how we can promote them. We can do highlights of certain number of meets and things like that." Streaming video is really, really key. Free streaming video is even more key. It builds the sport. We're not in a process right now that for a lot of the big things, sure, we get people to pay, and I want to see Runner Space and Flow Track around, but because they're doing really important things for the sport. But I also think that there's an audience, a much wider audience that we're not looking at, and we want to give them the opportunity to get involved in the sport. So my last thought for the day is working together. And we'll talk about that more next week in Athletics Chat 51. But this is the epilogue for Athletics Chat 50. Thanks to Mike Deering for managing our programming. Thanks to Stuart Weir from the intellectual capital of the world of Oxford, England, for throwing in his pound sterling or two and very thoughtful comments. And this is Larry Eater in Medford, Oregon, looking for a good glass of Pinot Noir. And I hope you guys are doing well today. Stay safe, get vaccinated, and even when you're vaccinated, just keep your mask in your pocket, because you may need it. We've still got to be careful, okay? Stay safe, my friends, all right? I want to see you all alive at a track meet in Europe, a track meet in the US, or a road race, okay? Take care. If you like RunBlogRun, like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you love us, subscribe on the YouTube. Let's build some numbers. Yes, Mike, I'm ending this now.